What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and you are probably very aware already that Rockstar has unleashed their very first look at Grand Theft Auto 6 recently. Well, officially anyway, since a ton leaked a little while back already. Regardless, the trailer has exploded and people from all corners of the internet are expressing their excitement at the existence of the next big game from Rockstar. I've been playing GTA since I was a young boy, and unlike many, I was usually more interested in the main story than just running around shooting people. But I still put my hours in when it came to blowing up grandmas with rocket launchers anyway. And of course, since this is the modern gaming landscape of today that we're living in, for every 1,000 people who are hyped for a new GTA, there's always gotta be some weird feminist activists out there crossing their arms as they scowl everyone else for having fun. As you also know, GTA 6 will feature Lucia, a female protagonist that thankfully actually looks like a real woman for once. I know that sounds weird to say at first, but unfortunately when it comes to Western game studios these days, it's become an unspoken crusade to make every female character purposely ugly. Just look at Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2 for example, who went from the adorable girl next door look to Skeletor with a wig on her head. Apparently, female characters are made uglier on purpose these days in order to avert the male gaze, which is so dumb. It's also why female characters don't ever seem to show skin at all either, which is why the GTA 6 trailer was like a breath of fresh air for many, because we actually saw what looked like real people for once, and Lucia thankfully isn't built like a human javelin like Mary Jane is at least. But of course, this is the modern landscape we're living in, and unlike back when GTA 5 was first announced, things like ESG and diversity quotas weren't really a thing yet. Back then, it was all about just making fun games that entertained you before anything else. Flash forward to today, and oftentimes it feels like you're being talked down to almost as often as you're playing these damn games. And now that GTA 6 is announced, the usual suspects have crawled out of their padded rooms to cry misogyny and more. To begin, let's look at DazedDigital.com, where its writer Hannah Strong asked this question: does the world really need another GTA sequel? I'll answer that question very quickly, by the way. The answer is yes, Hannah. Yes, we do. It's been 10 goddamn years since we've had a new GTA game. We used to get new GTA games every other year back in the PS2 era. Now we're lucky to get one game every 2 or 3 presidential cycles. Hannah Strong goes on to write and ask the question, how can a series like GTA be so popular when it's also so problematic? She explains that she was raised Catholic and didn't actually play a GTA game until 5. Hannah then drops the most 2023 word salad I think I've seen in a while. So let's hear her out, shall we? Hannah said, and I quote, "But is there still a place for the bloody, often deeply misogynistic, anti-sex work and transphobic worldview perpetrated by GTA in 2023? We are post-Gamergate, post-Me Too, and yet women are still struggling to be seen or heard within the games industry. Violence against women and transgender people continues to dominate global headlines. It doesn't feel like the gaming world has necessarily become a more accepting place, at least at the AAA level." The trailer for GTA 6 showcased the franchise's first fully playable female protagonist since the original Grand Theft Auto. Meanwhile, Rockstar has allegedly made positive shifts to clean up its frat boy corporate culture. Still, it's hard to imagine what a version of GTA that isn't a cis male power fantasy might look like. Growing up playing video games, I expected them to have some level of misogyny or homophobia baked into them. But a decade after GTA's release, the video game world is more diverse and exciting than ever. And as much as I love the Looney Tunes-esque hijinks of Michael and company, I've played plenty of games without the scummy sentiments. But even with its outdated views on gender and sex work, there is value in GTA 5. That a 9-year-old game continues to not only retain fans but attract new ones indicates there's something about it that still connects. Whether it's the masterful storytelling, online character building, or just the opportunity to wreak havoc in a controlled environment. I want a world I can get lost in, with flawed but compelling protagonists. Most of all, I'm still chasing that feeling I used to get as a kid when I heard about these video games. That thrill of something boundary pushing and a little bit ridiculous, though we can skip the sex simulation minigame and rampant misogyny this time around. That's something that only Grand Theft Auto can provide." End quote. Already, within 24 hours of its official announcement, and journalists like Hannah Strong are already pushing narratives that GTA 6 must bend the knee to woke identity politics. It's actually impressive. I thought it would take at least a few days for these kinds of articles to pop up, but alas, these people work fast. Saying GTA should drop its frat boy power fantasy image is akin to saying a game like Resident Evil needs to remove its horror elements. There's simply concepts that exist that are integral to these experiences. Saying you want a game set within a franchise called Grand Theft Auto to not incorporate politically incorrect humor and mayhem is ridiculous, as well as saying the game has an often deeply misogynistic, anti-sex work, and transphobic worldview, and then using buzzwords like Gamergate, Me Too, and more. The way Hannah is structuring this, it seems like she wants a GTA game to have nothing what makes it GTA besides being called Grand Theft Auto. This is the kind of mental gymnastics that have caused so many other games to either fail or alienate their audiences. There's another article later on I want to talk about too from thegamer.com that echoes what Hannah is saying here too. But the point is that these people want these games to adhere to their new world views. But the reality is that these concepts they push directly go against what these games cater to and represent. Saying you want a GTA game with no misogyny or mayhem is removing the very lifeblood of what makes these games tick. In a lot of ways, I always compare GTA to something like South Park. There are two icons that use their platforms to uniquely dissect and poke fun at all sides regardless of political leanings or ideologies. Nobody is safe from South Park, as they have dunked on both left and right-wing people in their Panderverse special, for example. Hell, Cartman even makes fun of channels like mine when he's talking to Kathleen Kennedy, and I wasn't even offended by that. I'm glad they did that because that's what South Park is for. Nobody is safe from their criticism. And GTA is the same, and it's why GTA 5 in particular sold like gangbusters because of it. Rockstar excels when they don't care about the status quo or who they're offending. It's what leads to amazing moments and memorable, but also crazy characters. Remember the torture scene in GTA 5 and how up in arms journalists got about it? If they had their way, that scene wouldn't exist at all. But the reality is that without scenes like that, GTA 5 would simply exist without saying anything of importance. If these journalists have their way, GTA 5 will be a sanitized woke utopia, where everyone you kill is a cis white man and every important character in positions of power are people of color. And the main villain, of course, would be a straight white man as well because ESG reasons. But we've already seen what happens to a game like GTA when they pander to these sensibilities. Remember that the Saints Row reboot already happened, and it erased all the edge and uniqueness from it, and Volition ended up making a game for nobody and it bankrupted the studio, and now they're gone. Saints Row's reboot is the gold standard of what these weirdos want. They want diverse casts of characters fighting white people only, fully clothed and looking androgynous at all times. They want the checking of lists while erasing any of the edge that made games like Saints Row or GTA special. Now I hope anyway that Rockstar won't Volition their sequel, even though back in 2022 when Jason Schreier reported via Bloomberg in his article titled, Rockstar Games cleans up its frat boy culture and Grand Theft Auto 2. With a new tone at the company and a change in creative direction, GTA 6 will probably feel very different from its predecessor. This article, which is now a year old, has worried me ever since it was released. Because unlike Hannah Strong or Stacey Henley over at thegamer.com, who mostly just cry about Me Too and pushing woke nonsense whenever they can, Jason Schreier has actual real sources in pretty much every game studio imaginable. What I'm trying to say is that in a meta where many game journalists are usually just paid crybabies, Jason Schreier is an actual game journalist still. Because he, actually reports on video games and the inner workings of their companies. I know, imagine shocked. I know, it's crazy. He explained in that article that Rockstar threw away a mode called Cops and Crooks when the whole George Floyd thing happened in 2020. They erased this potential new game mode because of the political incorrectness they felt they would get hit with by journalists due to it being released when everybody hated cops and such. Other things Rockstar has implemented in GTA 5 already that adheres to being more politically correct are, as Jason writes, This was one of several politically sensitive actions Rockstar, a division of Take-Two Interactive Software Incorporating, has taken in recent years. The company removed transphobic jokes from the most recent console release of Grand Theft Auto V, and significantly narrowed its gender pay gap. Jason also confirmed that developers are also being cautious not to punch down by making jokes about marginalized group, the people said, in contrast to previous games. Oh boy, that does not get me excited at all, knowing that GTA 6 will be removing some of its bite in order to pander. But as of last year anyway, this is apparently where this game is headed. Rockstar has already been publicly documented by people like Jason Schreier that the company during its development of GTA 5 was considered a frat boy utopia, which meant lots of drinking, partying, and long nights working on the game. GTA 5 also ended up selling almost 200 million copies as of 2023. So clearly what they were cooking when they had that mentality led to a banger that, by the way, sold another 5 million copies in summer 2023 alone. Left the company back in 2019. And Jason Schreier admits in his article that based on what he's heard and seen, the Rockstar of today is very, very different from the Rockstar that made GTA 5. And that's the other part that worries me greatly, is that GTA 6 might actually be getting made by a mixture of talented OG Rockstar devs and new blood that have drunk the Kool-Aid of identity politics. And all the signs are pointing towards this new Grand Theft Auto game having less bite, less satire, and less violence than previous entries. Dan Houser, by the way, was the creative director of other GTA games, and he was also the lead writer on games like GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2. So if you love the characters and jokes of Rockstar, it's because of people like Dan Houser. And yeah, he's gone now, and he's taken other key personnel from Rockstar who have been integral to the best parts of that studio. So now what we're seeing with GTA 6 is a game positioned to be the first in the series without the direction of many of the key people who were responsible for the bangers of the past. And it's confirmed so far anyway that this new game will be more culturally sensitive, and it will not punch down when it comes to jokes. Which is mumbo-jumbo corporate speak that means characters like Trevor will never exist as they did ever again. Because Trevor represents everything wrong with the current modern game industry apparently. Because he's a white cis man, and these activists see him as the devil instead of an actual person. Then we have that article from The Gamer, which is written by Stacey Henley, who usually is a feminist goldmine when it comes to content. But she has this one part where she talks about Lucia and says this: but at the same time, having a woman move through this violent and debauched world just as she would if she were a man is unrealistic, and I hope we get to see that. Is Stacey Henley being based right now? Because she's right. When it comes to GTA, it wouldn't make sense for the average man to fall and be overpowered by Lucia in close quarters combat. 9 out of 10 scenarios, whoever Lucia puts hands on when it comes to a man, she would get bodied immediately. Hopefully, Rockstar doesn't shy away from that fact. But if we end up seeing Lucia taking down 200-pound men with muscles with a single punch, I'll become the Joker. Stacey Henley goes on to explain that Lucia existing as a main playable character within the confines of a game like Grand Theft Auto runs the risk of alienating or feeling unrealistic. Which, my god, has Stacey become based? Has actual common sense entered the minds of these journalists? Because she's right. This is an actual problem that must be addressed when it comes to these sorts of decisions. Lucia, whether people will admit it, is a woman existing within a franchise where everyone can get clapped and slapped at a moment's notice. Realistically, someone like Lucia would very likely not thrive whatsoever in the criminal underworld, and she would more often than not just get pushed aside both physically and mentally by other just as insane criminals. I wager the story will be that her boyfriend, whose name is Jason apparently, betrays her, and the whole game is Lucia trying to get revenge on him. But that's what I think anyway. Even then, the idea of a 130-pound Latino woman with a gun taking out armed criminals is still ridiculous no matter how you slice it. In the past, GTA protagonists have all had believable backgrounds that made sense to why they did what they could do. Michael, for example, is a career criminal, and Niko Bellic is a Serbian war criminal who's definitely violated the Geneva Conventions. And Lucia is supposed to be standing shoulder to shoulder with these sorts of characters. And like Stacey Henley admits, it's just not very believable at all, and she's right. Look, I'm not against Lucia being the protagonist, I'm skeptical of course, but at least she's built like a real woman. It doesn't look like she wants to speak to the manager or have the mental illness haircut, but come on, this is Grand Theft Auto. And based on what we've seen in this video alone, the likelihood that this new game could be a massive woke disappointment is unfortunately a reality that just might come true. We have a more culturally kinder and diverse Rockstar making a game starring a woman of color, without the core writers or programmers of previous games. And we have a meta currently in Hollywood and gaming where everything must pander in order to raise ESG scores, so investors will become more likely to give you their money. While I'm not saying Grand Theft Auto 6 will be garbage just yet, I'm just saying that don't get blinded by the glitz and glamour that's in front of you. This could still absolutely become another game that has bent the knee to the mind virus. And if Grand Theft Auto can bend the knee, then dear viewer, nothing is safe when it comes to the limits of what these pandering activists can achieve. And as I was making this video, thegamer.com decided to release another article titled "Gamers are already complaining GTA 6 is woke." The bulk of the article is what the gamer considers gotchas against people claiming the game is erasing white people. Miami is predominantly black and Hispanic anyway, so I didn't exactly look at the game's trailer and come to that conclusion myself. However, I understand where these sorts of people are coming from as well. It's understandably difficult to not get defensive when it comes to things these days, because more often than not, the pandering and diversity equity index nonsense tends to always be proven true. So for the gamer here to make this article, it's not the gotcha they think it is. However, I will admit when Drama Alert tweeted that Lucia was trans and then cited a Reddit post from a year ago, with no actual information to back it up, yeah, that was stupid. But I personally don't believe Lucia is trans. I mean, there's been leaks that she's also a mother of a child in the game. And I mean biological mother, not adopted, but at this point, who knows since things change in development constantly with stuff like this. Nevertheless, I don't blame players for being defensive, especially when there are so few AAA games, if any, that actually don't pander in some way. Elden Ring might be one of the only ones, but that's made by a Japanese dev. In terms of Western studios, which Rockstar absolutely falls under, it's more often to ponder whether something will pander and how they'll do it than if they won't. I guarantee you that GTA 6 will have some pandering in it, absolutely. But even though Dan Houser has left along with other key members, I'm going to stay hopeful even though I've been burned way too many times already. Although I think if GTA 6 does end up being a woke nightmare, it could genuinely mean disaster for Rockstar, since a large portion of Rockstar's audience are young men who absolutely do not care in any way, shape, or form about diversity or any of that other nonsense. They just want to wear cool clothes, shoot people, and drive cars off buildings, which I mean, I don't blame them, it's fun as hell to do. Also, if Rockstar does end up bending the knee, this has all but ruined one of the last great bastions of no-nonsense entertainment in gaming for many players. Having GTA 6 pander would be like seeing South Park's creators getting on their knees and begging forgiveness from Kathleen Kennedy. It would be humiliating and would make people lose a ton of respect for South Park, or GTA in this case. But if GTA ends up bowing to the mind virus, it would be really sad to see. However, I should remind people when it comes to games at least, it doesn't only affect your ESG score when it comes to these things. But remember that nowadays too, when it comes to game awards and nominations, these kinds of socially politically correct nonsense things end up being important too. Look at this year's Game Awards. Even though it sold millions of copies and got high review scores, Hogwarts Legacy didn't get nominated a single time. It was shunned by the game journalism industry for embracing the property created by someone who has anti-trans messaging, which is Harry Potter's creator J.K. Rowling. And nowadays, pandering is almost as important to your ESG as it is to getting nominated for stuff. And if Rockstar doesn't pander, they might get excommunicated from Awards Season 2, which is insane to think, but if it can happen to Hogwarts Legacy, it can and will likely happen here too. And this is why there's a rot in this godforsaken industry that has taken hold. And we need to stand up against it as customers and players to make it no longer something that's so important. Otherwise, the pandering of games won't just be happening because these studios want to, but it ends up being necessary to not being socially shunned by the industry at large. And that's about as pathetic as it gets, but I guess time will tell. But until then, have a wonderful day and subscribe and like the video to help the channel out. It's been a minute since I've done a solely video game related video, so this was fun. Let me know what you think as always, and thanks to my patrons for their support. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.